Good morning, everyone. I'm Maxwell DeGregorio, a senior associate with the Milken Institute's Fintech program, um, presenting with Skyler Badenoch, the fourth installation of our series on the future of fintech and aid disbursement. Jen Murtazashvili can't be with us this morning, so I'm going to do the kickoff. But this, like I said, is sort of the fourth conversation we've been having. We've been thinking about how technology has been influencing the development space, how the sort of the changing context of development is like forcing or inspiring practitioners to think about different ways and creative ways of sourcing funding, of using this technology. So I'm very excited to have Skylar with us. I just wanted to sort of introduce Skylar first and then walk through a couple of the insights that are sort of frame this conversation. Skyler Badenoch is the Chief Executive Officer of Hope for Haiti, an organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for the Haitian people through investments in education, healthcare, water, infrastructure, and the economy. Before joining Hope for Haiti in 2017, Badenoch spent a decade at buildOn, where he managed participatory school construction programs in Haiti, Nicaragua, and Malawi. And he raised more than $10 million to support the construction over 500 schools. A former Peace Corps volunteer in Côte d'Ivoire, he holds a BA in economics from the University of Arizona and a master's in international development studies from George Washington University. So thank you very much for joining us, Skylar.
Thank you for
Um,
having me today.
we we've been having you and I met at a roundtable in Washington D.C. just a couple months ago, and I heard you describe the work you've been doing in Haiti, that your organization has been doing, the way you've been taking advantage of stable coins in particular. And I was already in the process of organizing the series with Jen, and I thought this is just sort of an excellent coda to this series to hear from a practitioner that has been deploying some of this technology to sort of meet your goals in the field. And so our first conversation that we had in this series was with Paul Brigner at Georgetown, who sort of talked about what stablecoins mean in an emerging markets context to sort of build some of that foundation for the group here at CGM. And then we spoke with Tristan Thoma, who did a lot of work like working with national governments on their digital asset, central bank digital currency strategies. And our last conversation was actually with Paul Wang at Stellar, who sort of
Stellar
talked about
Development.
sort of
You know Paul
Stellar's
very
work.
well. Yeah.
Exactly. And so Paul was sort of talked about Stellar's work with the UNDP, the work with civil society organizations in Syria, and all of this sort of has been leading to what is now sort of a great opportunity to have someone talk about how they are actually using stablecoins in their own organization as a tool for aid and aid disbursement. So I think this is just, I'm very excited to have you here and have this conversation, Skylar. But what I first want to kick off with is, can you just sort of introduce yourself and your program, the work you do, so people sort of be familiar with that context?
Great. Well, as far as introducing myself, you crushed my bio. So,
Thank you.
um, you brought back some good memories of working with the great organization buildOn, which I did for 10 years and helped them get to their 5,500 school. Just the other night, they celebrated their 3,000th school. So it's been a while since I've been on board there, but I follow them and support them from a distance. And it's really what got me into working in Haiti back in 2006. So it's almost been 20 years of working in Haiti. I started working in rural fishing villages, helping build schools using participatory construction methodologies, and really fell in love with that model because it captures the essence of this beautiful quote about like what you do for us without us is not for us. And we believe that at Hope for Haiti too. And so participatory development really is at the heart of what we try to do. And that said, what I'd like to do a little bit is talk some about Hope for Haiti, and then give some context to what's going on in the country, and then speak a little bit about what our approach is to adopting new technologies. Because what we all know, whatever field you're in, you might be in the private sector, or you might be in philanthropy, or you might be implementers, or you might be in academia. Technology changes your world. And in many ways, it changes what's possible. And we've seen it change in the outlook that we have on how technology can advance social and economic conditions in all places. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. But let me first set up some context in Haiti, because I've been working there for 20 years. And if you're reading the news right now about Haiti, most of the stuff that's coming out right now is you're going to hear about is negative. It's about, a close to a failed state and the government. You'll hear about the assassination that took place of the Haitian president in 2019, widespread countrywide lockdowns. There were times when it just was impossible to move about the country because the communities had protested mass widespread corruption and really locked down the country. You're seeing right now today massive amounts of gang violence concentrated in Port-au-Prince. They say about 90% of Port-au-Prince is controlled or directly impacted by gangs. 90%. It's a country of 11 or 12 million people, concentration of 4 million people in the capital. So you can get a sense of what that means for 4 million people who are living in that Port-au-Prince area. Currently, the UN estimates that there's 1.3 million people who are displaced. And of the almost 11 million, 12 million people who live there, about half are experiencing high levels of food insecurity. And about 3.3 million of the country's population need food support. From a security standpoint, what we know is that there's been a Kenyan-led security force that's been largely ineffective. There's a transitional government in place. Just a couple months ago, the UN approved a 5,500 gang suppression force. And there's a transitional government that's in place that really continues to struggle to find stability and hold elections. However, they did slate some days for the elections to happen, but it's just really hard to say whether that's going to happen. That said, with all of those things that's going on, it's very important for people to understand in the context of Haiti, Port-au-Prince is not Haiti. And so while Port-au-Prince faces enormous challenges, and we don't want to dilute that. You have to also recognize that there are other parts of the country that are operational. They might be indirectly impacted by what's going on in the country, but there are places in the country, and I'll tell you, I was there in August and I'm going in December, that you can get around and you probably wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't feel the type of crushing insecurity and violence that you would feel if you were in Port-au-Prince. These are big cities in Haiti, like Okap and Lekai and Jeremy. They just don't have that level of insecurity. So the reality is that things can happen. I'm going to be on a direct flight from Miami to Lekai in December, and I feel very safe in my ability to go there and travel around and see the work that we're doing. So that's a little bit of context about the country, and we can answer any questions if people want to go deeper into that. I want to briefly talk about Hope for Haiti, because for the last 36 years, our organization has been focused on one single mission, which is to improve the quality of life of people in Haiti, particularly women and children. And how do we do that? Well, my answer to that question is I do not do that. Our team in Haiti does that. My work is to really mobilize the resources and the awareness and provide the financial support so our team in Haiti can do the good work that they do. So our programs are focused on empowering local leaders, Haitian doctors, nurses, educators, administrators, logisticians, and resourcing them so that they can do the work to improve systems of education, healthcare, access to clean water and sanitation, and economic development in the southern region. And so that's what our focus is at Hope for Haiti. We are uniquely qualified and fully operational right now to do work, to not just respond to humanitarian issues that come up, but also to be a partner for the government and other non-governmental organizations that are working in the area. And so you can go and take a look at all the details on our website and the specific programs. I don't want to go into that right now. I want to talk about what we're doing as an organization to innovate and iterate and scale the use of new technologies. So I'm going to get into that in a second, but I want to give you a little bit of my mindset and my worldview of like why technology is so important. And I'll go back to my days as a Peace Corps volunteer. And
Great.
I'm a Peace Corps volunteer living in a rural community in West Africa. And we're doing some community meetings with my counterpart, and we set a meeting, and we're like, hey, we'll get the community together, and we're going to talk about the water sanitation challenges of this community. And we do it. We set the meeting. I'm like, great, we're going to do it on a Friday after market day, and we did it. We set the meeting. We go, and nobody shows up. I'm like, what happened? Like nobody showed up. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I asked yesterday, like one of the assistant chiefs died in the community and there's a funeral. I'm like, man, it would have been good to know that. And the reason why we didn't really know it because it was just hard to communicate. And what I think was solved by that many years later when I was working for buildOn and we were doing community meetings was cell phone technology. We would be working in places like Malawi and Nepal and even in Haiti, and we'd set a meeting for like mass community meeting to talk about education, and then we'd follow up over text, and some people would say, "Yeah, meeting's on, we got it," and some people would say, like, "Yeah, no, we had something going on in the community that we need to cancel," and so that kind of technology really changes the game for communication, and so it just helped me adopt this mindset that there are always going to be new technologies that come through that we should take a look at and decide whether or not we want to try to adopt or iterate or pilot with. And so when I started getting deep into learning about blockchain and cryptocurrency and financial inclusion, the idea of stable coins used to support financial and economic well-being in the developing country setting, in the setting of a country like Haiti, where there's some humanitarian disasters or there's some extreme poverty, and then people have a lack of trust because of transparency issues. This felt like something that not is, but could be a solution to a lot of those problems. Right now, we know in Haiti that 32% of people in the country have access to a bank account, and about 20% of the country, 20% of the GDP comes via remittances. So people from Haiti sending money back home to their family members, and they do that through various mechanisms. We know some of them, like MoneyGram and Western Union and other types of remittance services. And by the way, those folks are known for charging pretty extraordinary fees for the most part. So we're looking at these, the ecosystem here, and we're like, man, what could stable coins do? What role could they play in this ability of people to, get money and then use money in their communities? And so in 2019, we partnered with Coinbase, the cryptocurrency company. We Hope for Haiti was the recipient of Coinbase's first ever charitable donation. And we partnered with a company called Cello, which is a stable coin, and another wallet provider called Emoja. And we just piloted this really, I thought, innovative program, which was to provide about 300 mothers who were in Hope for Haiti's nutrition program with $50 a month for 6 months on a digital wallet that they could hold in their hand, that they could attach to an NFC card, and then they could also go to a store and buy food for their families. And so we created this closed market ecosystem using a stable coin where moms could basically purchase food for their families. And we had a team on the ground, troubleshooting, educating, making sure that moms felt comfortable using this technology. And then we had vendors who were also trained. And what we learned was really interesting in this first pilot in 2000. Well, it ended up happening. It started in 2019 and ended up really happening in like 2021. But what we learned was, first of all, when you give moms who are having a difficult time buying food for their families a little cash, guess what they do? They buy food. And we could tell that because we could see on the blockchain, not only did the moms get the money, it was important for the donors, like, did the moms actually get the money? Well, you could see it on the blockchain. So yes, but we could also see, did the moms actually spend the money? And you could see it on the blockchain. And then you could see, well, what did the vendors do? And we created an off ramp to the local currency, the good. And we could see when the vendors were off ramping. So we were learning all these really interesting things about like the behavior of moms and their spending. We're also learning how the behavior of vendors, and we just learned a tremendous amount. And the most important part for us wasn't just that we are using this new technology, but at the same time, because these moms were coming to our infirmary every every week and every month and receiving these stipends, we were also weighing their babies.
Mhm.
And we could see that the cohort, a large percentage of the cohort, the babies were underweight and malnourished. By the end of the project, like 90% were not. And that was a direct to me, that was a moment where I was like, this technology can actually do a lot of good. It can be more transparent, it can be more effective, it can be more efficient. And we're not just trying to like import food from a different country and then get it into the hands of moms. We're actually creating value all throughout the ecosystem and even the supply chain because we're supporting moms. We're providing digital literacy. We're also supporting vendors who are also using local food to sell. And that's a big economic ripple effect. And so we did that program. We wanted to do more. It took us a little while to get the second round of funding. The second round of funding came from the Conrad Hilton Foundation, to the tune of $250,000 to do very much the similar thing. So we did another iteration of that, not using blockchain, but
Mhm.
using a sort of a fiat wallet, and that worked. And then just this week, we are putting together the final pieces of a partnership agreement to do another round of this type of work. It's about $300,000 project that will be doing very similar food security work. We're also going to be iterating to get digital cash payments into the hands of teachers and into the hands of community health workers and into the hands of farmers so that we can see how they are using this type of digital currency. The key to this one is that most of them will have access to off-ramping, which is just the term used to change cryptocurrency into fiat using MoneyGram. And so that's really exciting for us. We feel like it is a game changer for our field and our sector for many reasons, not just for everyday development purposes and financial inclusion reasons, but also in the aftermath of a humanitarian disaster, which I've been a part of three in Haiti. That's an overview of what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we believe in this technology, and would love to ask any other questions that you want, and I can go into a lot deeper detail on
The,
this or other other nuanced beliefs of why we think this technology is important.
No, I think that's an excellent overview to start with, Skylar, and I have some great follow-up questions for you. But I just want to remind sort of the attendees here that you're welcome to sort of propose questions in the chat, and Grace and I will sort of be able to see those and ask them as well after I get through my questions with you, Skylar. We can sort of answer some questions that the audience has, but just remind you all that you
Yeah.
can type in your questions here. But
Yeah,
Skylar,
like ask me anything. Like no
yeah,
soft questions, please. No, I don't want any easy ones. Like ask the hard ones that I have
abs-
I'll struggle with.
but Skylar, you sort of did a good job describing like that you're seeing like cost, it's like efficiency, transparency benefits from implementing this technology, and I think something you pointed out that's interesting is not just using blockchain technology, but also using sort of digital wallets that run on sort of traditional money rails as well. There are still sort of advantages there in terms of like disintermediation, using sort of digital wallets to get money directly to beneficiaries or recipients of aid. I think something that might sort of be interesting to understand is like that the value proposition of like the traditional way of sort of moving money into somewhere like Haiti, and understanding sort of what legacy systems look like, what the costs associated with moving that money along legacy rails looks like, and then why disintermediation, like what the value is from having those digital alternatives, right? Be they sort of a traditional digital wallet, or something that runs on stable coins. Like how is that kind of digital wallet approach better than what was in place before?
Yeah, and I'm not going to just come out and say it's better,
Sure.
across the board because I think there's still a lot of growth and improvements to be made, but I
Hmm.
think the potential is exponentially better.
Okay.
And we're seeing it anecdotally, and we're seeing it a smaller and also increasingly greater scale.
Hmm.
And so, we all kind of know, and I know many of us probably on this call have sent money back home, or sent money to somebody at some point, whether it's even here in the United States or overseas. Some of us use Venmo, or some of us use Cash App, or whatever those payment systems are.
Hmm.
In a setting like Haiti, a lot of people, like I have friends, when I'm like, hey, I'm going to Haiti, they're like, hey, I'm gonna give you like 2 grand to
Hmm.
take give to my uncle because he's helping build it. We're helping him build his house. And so I bring a bunch of cash over, and then I like track down the uncle, and then he comes and he gets it, gets the money from me. And that's a pretty inefficient system. I also am not, I mean, I'm comfortable traveling in Haiti. I know been working for there 20 years, and I've never been scared of a person, not once, not one time. But I also like carrying large amounts of cash on me. I just don't like to do. And so there are some challenges and problems with that system. With the traditional like remittance system, it's MoneyGram, it's Western Union, and sometimes the costs to send money to a family member are like 10 or 12%, and that's a lot of money for people. And so what we think is interesting is just the ease and the speed, I think the velocity that you can send funds to people, and the ability and the possibility of them to cash out and use local currency or use digital currency at those places where digital currency is accepted. So they don't even have to touch cash. And that solves another problem in the country where there's liquidity shortages, there's cash shortages. There, like even just after this recent hurricane, Melissa, that scraped the southern part of Haiti and caused a lot of flooding, we were hearing reports of like there's no cash right now because they haven't been able to move it in the country. And so we feel like this kind of digital currency can solve these types of problems. And I can give you a really cool anecdotal story the other day. So we're it was about 3 weeks ago. I think that's when the Hurricane Melissa happened, and the flooding in southern Haiti had caused some damages, and specifically it had created some challenges for a community in Tigwav. And one of my colleagues, Wilner St. Preux, is from Tigwav, and he's got a small organization that he runs out there. And he's like, look, I'm going to take some days off, and I'm going to go out and help respond with this smaller organization. And I was like, well, I'd like to contribute just to you. So I actually had a couple of $100. Paul Wong, your former guest, had given it to me to do some testing. And so I was like, well, why don't we? I want to get this into the hands of my colleague Wilner. And so Wilner had a wallet. He had the decaf wallet that Stellar helped us set up. And within 16 seconds, I was in Scottsdale, Arizona. I put $200 um, in USDC into Wilner's wallet, and he received it 16 seconds. And there's
Hmm.
there's a total paper trail, electronic paper trail. And I was like, "Hey, did you get it?" He's like, "I got it." I'm like, "Okay, you got $200." And I'm like, you can use it for, the way you best see fit. But he also needed to be able to off ramp that. And
Hmm.
so I think it's brilliant that something that MoneyGram is thinking about and that Stellar's been thinking about is that they created a system where they could off ramp at any local MoneyGram. And within 8 hours, it was nighttime when I had sent him the money at night, so the MoneyGram is closed. But if it was open, he could have probably made this happen faster. But he went and he off-ramped it into the local currency, and then he used it to help support people who had been impacted by the floods. And that to me that's the type of efficiency we're looking for. Because I will tell you at the same time, we are getting lots of phone calls and emails from groups who are like, we just did a canned food drive for you guys because we heard what was going on in Haiti. And in my mind, I'm like, that is so incredibly generous and thoughtful. But think about the process and the cost it is going to take to get those cans of food from Pittsburgh all the way to Miami on a boat to clear customs in Port-au-Prince, circumvent some really dangerous gang activity, and then drive into this in no way. No way. I mean, that's not efficient. It's not going to really help in that immediate aftermath of a storm. People they need resources today.
Mm,
And so that's why I think this type of system has the potential to be exponential.
mm,
And that's why we're excited about it. And that's why we've committed to, using these types of pilots and these
mhm,
types of iterations to learn and expand the program. Now, we also think that pilots are great.
mhm.
I will tell you that, and somebody said this, we were at a Stellar conference in Brazil. And somebody's like, yeah, no, we shouldn't do pilots anymore. We know it works. And I was like, yeah, but if you don't want to do pilots anymore, just don't give pilot funding. Like that's not about the only reason why we're doing pilots is because we're getting pilot funding. And my point is we need to really think about if we've been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years and we have proof of concept and we have it down where people are feeling comfortable with the technology, we need to go take that real big leap of faith and do something like a scale time 10x, 10x, think about 100x, because that's what's going to really move the needle here in terms of our ability to make an even greater impact and not talk about, oh, remember how cool that pilot was one day when we really helped people quickly and efficiently and we did it better than we ever did. But then the money wasn't there. We need millions of dollars of investment to make this a reality.
No, that's a great response, Skylar. And I think you highlighted there's a lot of potential there. You've seen some great successes with these pilot programs. I love the point. Like we know what works. Let's scale it. I think it's very compelling. We have some great sort of questions that have come in from the audience. I have two questions so far. The first one's a two-parter that's sort of building on some of your earlier comments. So when you were first talking, you said you did a pilot initially with a Coinbase where you were able to run on blockchain rails, and then
Yep.
a second pilot where you ran on sort of more traditional digital wallet rails. And Daniel was asking why did you change from one pilot to the other to using sort of different why did you change from blockchain in that second pilot?
Yep.
And then also when you're dealing with sort of stable coins, like how do you onboard vendors into accepting those? And I suppose that's part of the on-ramp, off-ramp
Yep.
conversation, right? So we talked about off-ramps for individuals that are receiving payments, but is how when vendors are accepting a stable coin, what does that look like?
Yeah. I
So
love
you
that.
could
I
take
love
either one of those
I'm
questions
going to do them
first.
both. I'm going to do them in order, but
Great.
thank you for that question, and I've got the answer to that one, thankfully. So why change?
Yeah.
And so we did our first iteration with the support of Coinbase, with the support of Cello, and with the Emoji wallet, and we felt like it worked. And then we got a $250,000 grant from the Conrad Hilton Foundation. And we got that grant, and we were moving forward to do the same thing with using the Emoji wallet. And we were working with the Emoji team, and we'd signed an MOU, and we're like implementing. We actually paid Emoja to be our implementing partner in this next iteration and use their wallet. And then Emoja got an investment of some sort. We don't know exactly what it was, but they had to pivot their
Hmm. Hmm.
business model.
Hmm.
Because some investor, was like, you need to prioritize something different than this work in Haiti. And so they came to us and said, look, we gotta not work together. And they gave us the money back. And all of a sudden we were sitting there with a pilot without a wallet. And as CEO of Hope for Haiti, my um my preference is that we focus on impact first. And so I didn't want us to wait with money in our bank account when I knew we had other technologies available that we could use to do a very similar thing. And so we used another platform called Red Rose, and it worked pretty much the same, with the exception of, and this is gonna speak to the second part of the question. So why the vendors, and like how do you get the vendors comfortable? Um, the best way to get the vendors comfortable with any technology is to have it work without them having to think too much about it. And somebody always gives this they give this example of like even the call we're on right now, the Zoom call, which 20 years ago was like unheard of for most people. And it's a video call and we all sign in. And if you ask me to describe how it works, I can do it in very high level detail, but all the tech behind it, I probably can't. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible for the vendors. They're used to using their phones. They understand the idea behind a wallet or a bank account. And then this is a huge part of the success of these types of programs. We had a team on the ground who is skilled in troubleshooting, explaining, training, and following up. Because without that, it's not happening. And so our team was out to vendors and they said, okay, would you like to participate in this program? You will have additional clients coming in and buying food, and you'll be getting paid in this wallet. From this wallet, you'll be able to off ramp into the local currency. And this is how you do it. The key was to test it and to show them how it actually works so that they built up their confidence. But I will tell you this, what was super interesting about it were two things. One is that all of a sudden the vendors and the merchants were like, this is amazing because we have new customers. We have new customers who have purchasing power in the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars every single month, who are now buying food from me, who otherwise would not have been able to buy food. And that I think sold the merchants on it. In the first pilot that we did with Emoja, we could kind of look at some of the habits of the merchants, and we were seeing that the merchants weren't always just getting their payments from the women and then cashing out into the local currency. They were like holding on to it. And I asked our friends, like, why are they holding that? And they're like, well, part of the reason that they hold is because of inflation. If you have a stable currency, like let's say you have a stable currency that's pegged to the US dollar, and then on the other side of it, you have a very volatile currency like the Haitian yuan that goes up, you're able to hold something in a digital currency that's pegged to the US dollar that hedges for inflation and allows you to reduce your exposure to inflation. And then when you need that local currency for one reason or another, you can then cash out. But where you're holding it, it's in a US dollar stable coin. That to me is super fascinating. It's also fascinating. I mean, this is where you start talking about the possibilities too, because if you're talking about savings and the large amount of people who are unbanked, if you could get to a situation where people are holding on to a stable coin that has a yield, they're now able to access things that most of us on this call have a very easy access to, which is high interest savings accounts. Most people in Haiti do not have access to that. If they had $100 that they wanted to put away, they couldn't put it into a high interest savings account. With this type of technology, all of these types of these financial tools could be at their disposal, which I think would be beneficial to their social and economic well-being.
And we've had this conversation a couple of times in this series, right? The how stablecoin, even though stablecoin example
Yep.
as a native instrument does not bear interest, but there are people in sort of like certain like developing countries, emerging markets. The prime examples are always Argentina and Venezuela, where you hold on to USDC even though it is not interest bearing because the opportunity cost relative to the devaluation of your local currency. It is like you said, a viable savings account. And when we were speaking with Paul just sort of a couple weeks ago, he's sort of said something very similar, like, something he's very interested in is, how does like almost like the tokenization of assets, which gets into a whole different conversation, allow people to sort of buy into and own shares of effectively US dollar denominated equities, right? Like you're in Malaysia, you want a piece of the S&P 500. It's otherwise very expensive or onerous to do it. There's sort of a pathway to disintermediate that, which I think is, like you said, a very fascinating conversation. We spent a lot of time thinking about that at Milken. But I wanted to move on to,
But
unless you had something you wanted
one
to
thing I
say.
want to admit,
Yeah,
because
go
I
ahead.
just done like if I wanted to in my Coinbase wallet right now, if I wanted to put I can get yield from my USDC
You
almost.
can get yield for your USDC through Coinbase, right? And that's an open question sort of
Right.
in US policy right
But
now.
and that's what I'm talking about is the
Yeah.
potential of that. That's
Yeah,
really limited,
yes.
right? Because you can get 4% yield on USDC in your Coinbase wallet.
Yes.
And wouldn't you, if you're somebody who had that funding available, it would be great if you had that kind of option.
Yes, and
Like,
I think like there's a very serious conversation sort of in U.S. policy circles, and this gets us a little bit off topic.
I know.
That like
We're fine.
interest-bearing stablecoin, are I think exciting a lot of people, and there's a lot of potential there, and so we'll see how it all. I'm following it very closely, so we'll see how that all
Yeah,
shakes
yeah, yeah,
out.
definitely.
But I wanted to
Get us
move
back
on
on track,
to.
Maxwell.
I'm sorry.
Get us
Yeah.
back on track.
I just wanted to. We have another question that came in from James Woolley. James is a former USAID professional.
Yeah.
He wanted to ask, sort of, as you continue supporting business development in Haiti, have you explored how fintech solutions could help local enterprises streamline employee payments and improve procurement processes? Which I think sort of ties into some of the comments you were making earlier about working with vendors. So I, if you have any
Look,
insights on that front.
and James, that name sounds familiar. I don't know. I think we may have crossed paths before, or maybe we know each other through social media or something. But thank you for that question. And the answer is yes. As far as payments and payroll, that's really interesting to us because for the longest time, one of the main program goals of Hope for Haiti is to support the financial stability of teachers in our 24 school network. And so in our 24 school network that supports about 7,000 students, we have about 400 teachers. And as long as our organization has been active, we believe that education is the backbone for economic and social development. And our founder was like, we're all about supporting teachers and students. And so we have a program that provides a teacher salary subsidy and it's paired with teacher training and school support and agricultural support at the school level in rural communities in Haiti. And for the longest time, even when I came on to Hope for Haiti 9 years ago, what we'd be doing would we'd have these partner schools and we would basically give cash to the school director. And we would have the trust that the school director would give the cash to the teachers in their schools. And trust is good and it's important, but that's not transparency. And that's not verifying either. So we were just like, hey, maybe they signed their name, but that system to me wasn't working. And so as new technology became available to us, we started testing out new methods. And one of those new systems was Mon Cash, which is the digital currency, digital money on the cell phone network that Digicel runs. And so at first we got, because change is hard for everybody, we got a lot of pushback. People were like, no, we don't want to do it. And I was like, look, I need to be able to tell our donors that if you supported the teacher salary subsidy program at Hope for Haiti, that I can verify that this teacher got $50 a month in their digital wallet. And I need to be able to verify that through a paper trail, electronic paper trail. That's what this technology of mobile money has done for Hope for Haiti. And it's allowed us to do that. So with our new iteration, this next iteration that we're going to be doing with Stellar and another company called BS Sciences, and then another company called Cura, is that we are going to be starting to test the wallets, putting funds in the wallets of teachers and setting teachers up with those wallets so that we can do the payments more efficiently and effectively. And the next thing that we're going to be doing is looking at how do we do the same thing with frontline healthcare workers that we know has been done before, by the way. Like it's been done before in all different parts of the world. And we just it has, I don't think it's been done in Haiti. So we want to be able to iterate and explore the potential of providing frontline healthcare workers with support. The next iteration of that, we believe, is, I mean, there's so many, there's to James's question, James, there's a lot of potential for things that are already being done, like village savings and loans groups that exist all throughout the southern part of Haiti. My colleague Wilner St. Preux, who I spoke about earlier, he's in charge of setting up village savings and loans groups. And digital wallets could be, they're not yet with us, could be a really interesting way for us to help protect those villages and savings and loans groups from having a whole bunch of cash in one spot. So we would be exploring that. And then as far as we haven't gone down this path yet, but for a long time, Hope for Haiti maintained a fund to invest in businesses and social businesses and entrepreneurs in Haiti. And so we made a lot of investments, mostly to farmers and small farmers, and some larger loans to entrepreneurs. And we believe it could also be a really important mechanism for a program where we're basically, doing financing of businesses and entrepreneurs.
That's excellent. So,
Yeah.
so Skylar, so the reason that Jen sort of initially asked me to organize this series was like this focus on like what does the future of development look like, and which is another series that Jen is having sort of outside of the technology angle. But she asked me sort of a series that was like, what role is technology playing in the
Yeah.
future of development specifically? And we've had this conversation. And so when she's been on these calls previously, a question she would ask sort of as we were nearing the tail end of the conversation would be sort of like, what are the bigger lessons learned here for development professionals, sort of as like we're realizing sort of new opportunities, with the technology that's coming online, as pilots are sort of maturing into something that could be scaled, more sustained. Like what lessons could be learned more broadly for the development space? And a lot of this conversation that Jen's been having, not just in this series, but in other series at the CGM this fall, it's also been sort of asked in the context of, that development aid is very much like a changed industry in the United States, especially post this past year, right? The role of the federal government, USAID, is very different.
Post the death of USAID.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if you want to sort of maybe talk about how maybe we do one of two things. We can say like what are the lessons that development practitioners can take. Yeah, what lessons can development practitioners take away looking at the new tech landscape, given that the context that USAID is gone. Maybe are there doors this is opening? Are there possibilities this is creating? Feel free
Yeah.
to sort of answer that as you'd like.
I think that's a really interesting question because there's three things that really come to mind as far as like what's changed and what's being impacted and maybe where some opportunity lies. And I think the first thing that came to mind when you're talking about how the landscape has changed is I think that there's been a greater shift of importance into the hyper local. And that's actually, most people who I speak with in Haiti and our team would agree. And I think even a lot of people who I'm friends with who are um, either Haitian American or live in Haiti, that they would believe that the hyper local is very important. It's very important. And that's what should have been built up all throughout the past years of USAID support. But instead, what it was USAID supporting made big development organizations that You're talking about the Save the Children, the CARES, the CRSs, the FHI 360s of the world. Like those funds from USAID, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars would flow through those organizations, and in my opinion, would become very diluted in by the time it got down to the hyperlocal, by the time it got down to implementation. And so it might just be that there's a new opportunity for organizations that are very localized to be and stay relevant because they were probably never relying heavily on USAID funding in the first place. And when it goes away, they go away. So all of a sudden, I think it poses a really interesting opportunity for the hyperlocal. And I think when you invest in the hyperlocal, you're investing in people and organizations that are going to be there no matter what. They're not going to jump in and try to, chase the money or chase the donor dollars, buy a bunch of vehicles, pay a bunch of consultants, and then they're gone. And nothing was really not a lot was accomplished. The hyperlocal, they stay. They build community, they iterate, they don't go any, they're there. And I think that's going to be a really interesting shift. The second thing that I wrote down is really just the change that I would like to see and that we believe in is, there's still an importance in development for capacity building and training and even like uh, resource allocation, but the money itself makes the work happen. And so the way that I just can see there being a lot more efficiencies in the way that things are done when money um, becomes uh, easier to transfer and also more transparent and efficient to transfer. And my hope is that our sector, the international development sector, will invest more in this and less in the things that have been done in the past um, that we know are inefficient, even ineffective. And so there's that. And then the last piece for me is you've got to build the infrastructure. So that's you can't build a house without a foundation. Well, I think this is what this is. It's building the foundation, and you can't build the foundation without being in the hyperlocal and supporting local leaders on the ground, providing resources to local leadership. And what I mean by local leadership, it could be anybody. It could be, when I think of local leadership hub for Haiti, I think of our chief program officer, our head doctor, head nurse, our manager, our drivers, the people who are actually doing the work. They're frontline healthcare workers. They're frontline educators. That's the hyperlocal. That's the foundation. That's what we're trying to build it. That's what help trying to build an infrastructure around. So they're, help them build their own infrastructure, really. And so those are the three things that I think about in terms of how this landscape is changing, how we want to play a role in changing it. For us, it's like, yeah, hyperlocal, make the money fast and transparent, and build good infrastructure so that things can grow and develop.
That's excellent, and that is if Jen was here for this call, that's exactly right up her alley. So
Right.
I'm sure she'll be excited when she listens to the playback of this. Um, well, Skylar, like I think it's been sort of a delight having you with us. I just wanted to maybe give you maybe an opportunity to sort of leave us with any sort of closing commentary on like the way that you see sort of this technology going. How does this like technology like how does disintermediation, digital wallets, like faster, cheaper payments, like how do you see this sort of reshaping sort of the landscape going forward? And that might be my closing question.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna be vague on it
Okay.
because my answer is it just depends.
Hmm.
Depends on how much investment we can get for doing things a better and more transparent, efficient way.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think right now there is probably more of an appetite for it than ever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the old system has been sort of in many ways taken out.
Hmm.
So there's an opportunity, I think, to build a new system that's better, that's more transparent, that adds value to everybody, and that creates better opportunity for and more equitable opportunity for people who we want to see improve, whose lives we want to see improve. And so I can't say definitively, oh yeah, it's going to be like this or it's going to be like that. But what I can say is that we're going to continue as an organization. Hope for Haiti is going to continue to try to iterate and scale so we can be relevant in this space and help support the economic and social mobility of the people who we serve in Southern Haiti. So that's what I can say on that end. But I think the potential is there. It's about, do we have the right people? Do we have the right funding? Do we have the ability to be consistent over many years in building something? And that consistency is something that we talk about all the time. The consistency is gonna beat, the one big thing you do all year. But if you do something 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row, you're going to grow, you're going to get better at it, you're going to build something that's meaningful, important, and lasting. And so that's where we are, and that's our mindset.
Well, thank you very much, Skyler. I sort of look forward to having you, at some more Milken convenings and conversations that we're having throughout the year. And I'm sure Jen will have you back at the CGM to sort of have some follow-up conversations on your excellent work. So,
Hey,
but
you did
thanks.
a great. Thank you so much for being here and asking me on and your questions and facilitating this. And clearly not the first time you did it because you crushed it as well. So thanks.
No, no, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you. And have a nice rest of your day. Thank you everyone for joining us in the audience and for your great questions. Um, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.